let's begin, please. Everyone, hi.
Okay.
Welcome, staff. It's so good to see you. I'd like to call to order the Wilmette Park District Committee of the whole meeting on Monday, October 27th at 5:34. Roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Duffy. Present. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Goble.
Here.
Commissioner Murdoch. Here. Commissioner Adrian Oakley.
Here.
Commissioner Leahy. Here. Commissioner Frazier. We have.
Here. We have a quorum. Okay, communications and correspondence. In the packet, we had Commissioner Leahy's speech, which I heard was a wonderful event.
In this room.
Any quick remarks on that?
No, not really. I mean, we had one question and it was about Bethel, and it was, do we intend to sell it for houses? I said, no. I hope I didn't speak for anyone out of turn. And then there was a comment about, do we intend to turn it into a $70 million aquatics facility? And I made sure that the room knew that what we do with that space is will be a result of a lot of listening. So it could be a lot of things, but I roundly said no to one definitive thing. So that's it.
And I would say, I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
So for sure.
All right, moving on to 3.0, public comment and recognition of visitors. We have our wonderful staff here. I do not see any in the audience. If I could have a show of hands, potentially. Anyone who would like to make public comment? Okay. Seeing that there is none, moving on to old business. Seeing there is none, 5.0, ongoing district projects.
All right, I'll give the update. So at Gilson Park, as you know, we're working on finalizing the as-built as well as closing out the permit with MWRD. There's a final inspection that seems to take a while to get MWRD out here. But once we do that, we're able to close that project out. Along the same lines at Langdon, they are finalizing all those closeout documents, permittings, and as well as the final pay estimates. At Hibbert Park, this is a project that is ongoing. As if you drove by, they're on the south baseball field pouring concrete, getting the baseball area updated. And I think probably the biggest area of topic is the playground. And so actually Josh has been working with the contractor. We had some issues with the board in place, which is the safety rubber surfacing, not meeting accessibility code. So the contractor is on the hook for that. And unfortunately we are in colder weather, and that stuff is very temperature sensitive. It is not something that we want to flirt with even being close on the temperatures, because I know that product well. If it's not installed in ideal conditions, it will be a problem forever. So what we are doing is we are writing in their contract that they will be replacing it at our specified time, which is when that area will be closed. And so we're putting that in, so we have it in writing. We are able to open, that's the plan. So what our staff internally is putting in a temp fence situation so that it's safe to play on. And then the contractor will come back in, I think November 4th, when the steel fencing is here, for a quick swap out of that. We're communicating with our staff. I know Josh sent an email, I think just recently, to update our team on that. And there are two items that need to be corrected. And that is, we're hopeful that we can open this week, actually. So long as we can get the manufacturer to sign off on a couple of deficiencies that came up in the final report for the playground equipment itself. So we hopefully we'll have an idea, maybe even tomorrow, as to what that looks like, but we're moving forward with getting our staff ahead to get that temp fencing so that we're ready to move forward.
What is you said the rubber or was not properly, I guess that has not been poured.
It has been
There
poured,
has been one.
and it's almost 80% of it is not within the accessibility slope, cross slope. So they'll have to remove and re-pour it, and that's about a 5-day-ish, 4 to 5 day project for them to come out and take it out and re-pour it.
So
Probably is.
there is a surface.
There is a surface
but
there, yeah.
It slopes too much, or?
Yeah. Yep, it's not far, it's not, yeah, right, it's not far off, so most people won't even notice it, but it's not right, and it needs to be right, so we paid for it to be right, and so the contractor will be making it right.
Will that require the removal of the structures to then, no, so we can pour around it, specifically the caterpillar, which could have caused the grading issue, it sounded like last time?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay, is the caterpillar, so that's good, it doesn't, the playground equipment will not have to be removed, does the curing take, how long does the curing take?
It's depending on the temperature, but the curing of that is, it's less than a day probably in ideal situations.
So what, do you know I'm curious, what temperature does it need to be above, just so we have our sight set on a particular
50.
one? And consistent 50?
50 is like the lowest temperature, right? So it has to be 50 and rising for that period of time. So it's likely gonna be, I can't remember the date, Steve here might have it. I believe it's in between camp and it's sometime in June or.
Okay,
The end of preschool and before the start of camp, there's 1 week where we don't have any
Yeah.
programming, even though preschool camps start early.
Mhm.
We should have a week in there that nothing will be going on, so it wouldn't impact programming at all if we did it during that time.
That's great. Okay, thank
And
you.
is that material made out of recyclable product? Where they like take
Kinda.
it out and then they reuse it, or it's just?
That will
lost
be,
cost?
unfortunately that product will be garbage because it's got glue, it's just rubber and a glue material that makes it up, so.
And I'm sorry, I think what, Commissioner Frazier said that the caterpillar may have been part of the problem.
Well.
How is that? And this caterpillar somehow seems to be causing more trouble.
No, yeah, the caterpillar is very large.
Yeah,
The kids will love it. And I think that because it's so large, the area for the surfacing is smaller. And so there's less room to get your slope right. And so they didn't pay close enough attention when doing it. It's, again, most people would never have an idea that it's 1% off in some areas, maybe 2% in slope. And, but the final surveying caught all that.
And this is obvious, but we wanted them to get it right. We paid to get it right.
Yeah.
Is it close enough that we would accept a credit? Or is it not having seen it,
It's a good question.
but I trust your judgment
Yeah,
of the staff.
I mean, I just see it as an accessibility item that will be a problem in the future should we have people with mobility challenges wanting to use that space.
That's
We
fair.
may not now, but we may in the future.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, thank you. And given how much we participate within SSRA and you know, it just is likely that it would be an issue.
yeah,
So,
right.
okay.
All right, CRC reconstruction, we're moving forward. We had a meeting with the contractor and our team at CRC and are trying to do our best to coordinate that monster project. Big kudos to staff. I mean, they've done an amazing job. You all know that with balancing, really a difficult situation in that facility that is, as we all know, it's our community hub. And so there's going to be some challenges. We're working really close with Dave and his team, as well as Josh and their team, to make sure that we are as seamless as we can be, given a massive reconstruction effort in a facility we're gonna keep open. So we're working with the contractor, seemed pretty good in our first meeting, understanding all of that and trying to kind of limit our burden on our programming side of things is the goal there. And they're ready to get started really soon here. Matter of fact, they're hoping in the next 2 weeks to get moving. We will work with JP and ensure that communication is as high as humanly possible, so that we're making sure that not only from the staff standpoint, but the community knows what's coming as best we can. We can relay that to them. Anybody have any questions about it?
Seeing how we had some negotiating going on, I mean, did we get most of what we were asking for?
Yeah.
Like 80%, 100%?
Percentage wise, I think there was only 2 areas that we went back and forth, one of which is still in limbo. And so we pulled it out and, of the insurance, conversation so that we could get a check and move forward and with the thought that we're gonna go back to them for that.
So
Even though we still have the contractor, we have
we have the opportunity to get back to them still. Is there a time limit on that, that you have to go? No.
so it's already open, you know, we just for the, in the process of moving forward and putting this thing back together, it was just taking too long to go back and forth from them, so they agreed that we would revisit it.
And we had an adjuster working on our behalf and they said, okay, we can
Mhm.
talk something.
Yeah. Good. All right, lastly, CRC Solar, contractor has been out finalizing punch list items. Verde, as you see, is coming out and they will be there for the final inspection with the village. Once that's completed, they will submit to ComEd to get authorization to interconnect. Finally.
Exciting.
And hopefully ComEd won't take as long as we do the generator or whatever
Yeah.
that.
It shouldn't. That was the big,
I bet it does.
On the record, that was Patrick.
I'm betting against solar for that until it's done. It's been so long. So that's exciting. We've moved on. Too bad it's continue to take forever. Everybody heard me. Hopefully it doesn't.
I can't
Top
wait for a
crowd.
week to celebrate.
Here.
Did you guys manage?
Okay, 6.0, new business, everybody. September 2025 financial update.
Okay, so the story has been pretty steady throughout the year. Revenue is under budget by property taxes, or we haven't collected, but we've been making up in other areas. So instead of being down like 3.8 million, we're only down about 2 million through today. By the end of the year, we'll, unless we don't receive that money, we will, be down the property taxes. Miscellaneous income is over, and the reasons for it, are these one-off things. Looks like revenues are ahead of budget in all of the other, categories, but some of that could be, dare I say it, deferred revenue related. So pay attention to the line that you see in projections, okay? The staff worked really hard to get those projection numbers tight. And right now, we're looking at, the operating surplus is a big thing. We're looking at operating surplus of, I'm seeing like 6.5 versus a budget of 6.0. And most of that is related to the miscellaneous revenue. Okay. Our budgeted fund deficit was to be about 3.2, but it looks like it's going to be about 3.9. Most of that is related to capital spending. There was $1 million, 999. You've seen this on the capital, report that I send out every single month. There was a column of amounts that were carried over from 24 into 25. While those were not in as part of the budget, they had been appropriated in a previous year, and so we can spend them this year. And the difference is going to be up and down based on all the projects. You can see where we saved money or where we went over budget. Mostly, it's related to projects that caught us by surprise. School bus, lift, a few of the things that I can think of. So, we're just looking at a difference bottom line of about $730,000, an increase in the deficit for this year, and increase to operating surplus by about 527, it looks like.
Okay, just for clarification, if anybody checks this recording, let's say we don't get taxes until February of next year, right? We have ample surplus to cover operations and keep operating without a slowdown in our services.
I would say that that's something we need to have checked.
There,
That's ominous.
yeah.
No, it's just the truth.
Yeah.
So the cash flow, yes. Cash flow
Yeah,
projection for this year is probably around a $500,000 deficit. If we spend every penny that we see in this projection, and we don't receive a dime in property taxes.
Ooh.
There are some cash flows that will come in, like registration for winter and also, Black Monday, Cyber Monday, whatever the heck, right? The next big cash inflow is gonna be for camp. That's not until February. So, as of Friday, I'm exploring our options.
Can I make a suggestion? We have, I believe, a wonderful relationship with Wintrust Bank. It wouldn't be bad to at least have an initial discussion with them to plan in the event of,
It's already scheduled.
awesome. Thank you very much.
I'll clarify. Go ahead. You're talking about potentially dropping below our stated reserve policy as opposed to running out of funds.
I'm talking about running out.
Okay, that's what I wanted. So that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yes.
And I know Voca has had property tax issues, I think, a couple of years ago, and they explored and might have even gone through with loans based on expected property tax receipts. So it's available. This is not, obviously,
Like I said, we're
yeah.
exploring our
Yeah.
options. You know, we could issue a promissory note. In the public, in the publics, people would be interested in buying that, but that comes with a lot of fees. So I would like to pursue, I talked with Andrew today about what those kind of costs were. And then I'm gonna have a chat with the bank to see if we can get better rates.
Or
Yeah.
just a revolving line if we need it to.
Yeah, great.
So I think, a couple takeaways I observed just in this discussion, which is very helpful and very important. There are some what ifs that are unknown. You, Sheila, and Chris and others are already planning for bridges to help us. Having experienced this in the corporate world before, there's always a couple of things that we can explore, which include, we're going to pause on, I'm going to make this up, the paving of that parking lot for another month or another quarter, right? There's things like that that are always possible. And so I just want to.
For some capital spending.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And so, for anyone listening in the room or elsewhere, I think it's really important that we acknowledge while we plan for the what ifs, we also prepare. And this is something that we will see through.
Absolutely.
Anything else for the September?
Does anybody have any questions about capital or the numbers, the projections, anything?
I mean, a couple things. One, we're looking vis-a-vis the Hibbard project and the slope and, the playground completion. We don't have to pay that final bill. It's not finalized. So
Yeah.
I don't see that being paid until
The
June.
cash flow related to the capital spending is something I'm watching like a hawk.
Okay.
Okay, we've already had some chats about that.
Yeah.
We talked about 60 days after all of these things,
Mhm.
all of these things that we can do. We have some levers to pull. My worst case scenario is looking at about $500,000 overspent. So, the banker that I speak with is back from vacation today, so I should be meeting with her tomorrow.
That's great.
And, we'll see what we can come up with.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, 6.2 budget discussion. Golf is up first.
So we were talking about doing introductions.
Yeah. I
So.
actually have an idea.
Coming up, maybe we'll do that,
I had an idea for that.
okay?
Would it be possible if, as we go through their, because we obviously know Adam and Nick well, because we get to spend some time with them. As we move to the general rec budget, would it be possible as we go through their section that they introduce, so we can associate responsibility with where we are in the budget, right? They've worked on this. That is my preference.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
For a skip.
Lakefront's ready.
The dogs are waiting in the hallway.
There's some longest 24, right? See, don't start on page 24 in the budget. You're going through it again.
Thank you.
2033. Okay, we'll start with a couple of comments and then we'll just open it up to questions. As we look through the budget comparison report that you guys have in front of you. Golf has obviously been fortunate in that the business has been booming for a good 5 years now, where it's a very busy facility. We've been fortunate to be busy from the beginning to the end of the season. Coming out of COVID and then some local courses in our area closing for renovation, we were able to get some new business, and we've just kind of continued that momentum. The golf course has been in excellent shape. Our relationship with the lawn, our food vendor, has brought new excitement over the last 5 years to the facility, and our numbers have really continued to go up over the last couple of years and provide some solid revenue numbers. Also in line with that, expenses obviously that we know have gone up. When looking at expenses, some of our big areas that have gone up have been the equipment we use for maintenance, purchasing of materials, sand, all of those type of things. Trucking, that's gone up considerably over the past couple of years. Repairs, some of our older, not only building, but materials we've had to repair and continue to have to repair. So we've gone up on repairs and then payroll. When you take a look at, even over the last couple of years, most of our part-time staff at golf is paid minimum wage in the minimum number, and that has continued to go up. So in these years, 23, 20, every year we're going up. The recommended increase in payroll is 3%, but golf's going up more than 3% because it went from 13 and 14 to $15 an hour, which is more than 3%, but that's just because of the minimum wage increase. And rather than having a bunch of employees where some are at minimum and some are a lot higher, all of our operations staff is all at minimum. Only some of the maintenance part-time hourly are higher. So that's why that number has continued to increase. What we use to budget for 2026, just on a basic number, is a 3% decrease in rounds with a 5% rate increase in most areas. I say in most areas we do, just to remind, we have some new commissioners, some folks that may not remember, we use dynamic pricing at the golf course. So it's not just a flat rate. Based on time of day, based on season, based on weather, we're able to charge more or less to encourage play in slower times and to maximize revenue in really busy times. So we're going to continue that process into 2026. And we think a 5%, it's not a flat 5% rate. In some areas, it'll be more than that. In some areas where we're already pretty high, we're going to kind of stay flat or maybe go up $1 in a couple of different areas. We have the ability to look at what other courses are doing, what other people are charging. One comment I made before, we are the highest priced municipal golf course in the North Shore. So it's not that we haven't been. 6 years ago, that we were not the highest price. We were kind of middle of the pack. So we have been aggressive with rate increases to the public, and we've improved conditions and provided a product that they enjoy. But I think we've maximized revenue in that way, and we plan to continue to do that in 2026. That's pretty much all I have for comments. So myself and Nick are here and available for any questions on specifics on the budget or strategies in general.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I circled and, wanted to chat through was the rates, and knowing that we're one of the highest after being one of the mid-range, I think is still appropriate. And I would share, in my playing experience, I often am paired with someone who drove from Chicago. We're an easy exit off the highway, and we have great course conditions. People like to stay for a meal or even grab a sandwich. So while, there are places where I might suggest we don't want to be the highest, I think we can earn that. I think it's appropriate. And, would just look for ways that we could offer, price benefits to certain populations, whether it's, the youth population, because they are also the future of the sport, or seniors who can play many times during the week if they choose to, just making sure that those who aren't working have the option.
Utilization of the teaching of the times is, it's all just a big math problem. Who's going to play when? It's only 4 people can tee off every 10 minutes, and there's only so many hours that it's light out. So you can get 280 in on a busy day. That times 7 is a week, and times 30 is a month. The golf budget's just like you just keep rolling out a math problem. And how much can you get per round? Dollars per round is something that we kind of look at. is pretty common. You're gonna have, to answer your question about, juniors and senior plan, whatever, we do that for our memberships. We don't, we do have, so in our memberships, seniors obviously get it at a lower rate. Our residents get the memberships at a lower rate. And at our junior, membership, which is, we had 120 junior members this year. It's become a huge popular program in the last 5 years. And the plans continue to do those with, slight increases under the guidance of in the 5% range on each of those membership types.
I think you pretty much answered the question, and we talked about it briefly ahead of time, but revenues are basically flat, and that makes sense to me, given Winnetka opened up again last year. We tried the benefit, and we've had a really nice run with golf. But on the expense side, on the salary side, I know you mentioned minimum wages, but our labor cost is going up 8% relative to last year's budget, 4% relative to the end of the year projections, whereas revenues are flat. Is there any opportunity to sort of tighten that gap a little bit one way or the other?
For sure. And that's going to come in our shoulder season. So an exciting thing is we talk about playable days and how many days. So if we get an early start to season or we go later in the season, it's great. So more people get more days to play. We open up earlier, but then also when we're open more days, we have to have staff for more days. So, it's going to hit expenses on that side. There was a portion of the season that we were short some maintenance staff that we were, we were three for a little bit, right? And then like 2 guys down for a good 6 weeks. So we budgeted back to that fully staffed number for next year. So there's probably a percentage or half a percentage in there that's going to come just from budgeting to be full staff. And then the shoulder seasons, based on revenue, when the revenue warrants it and we're busy, we're going to utilize those people and try to make sure that we have them. And then if we come out of the spring and revenues aren't looking good, or we had a late spring, I think we've always done, and we will continue to monitor our costs and make sure that we're being responsible and not having any wasteful spending on that. So I think, in having conversations with Chris in our first initial meetings about what we wanted to budget, he asked how I felt about this budget, that I felt comfortable. And that I didn't think it was conservative, but I thought it was fair and kind of where I felt like we would be for next year. I also could see revenues being significantly better than that based on when we get started in spring, what the weather looks like, and how much rain we get next year and what happens. We got a big unknown in town with Westmoreland Country Club and what's going to happen there and when their construction is going to complete and when they're going to open, when they open, what that looks like. And they're in the middle of construction. So what happens with that construction will lead to, people in this community making a decision on how much they're going to pay for. So, and we won't know that until we get in the spring. So once we get into membership sales and stuff, we could pick up 4 or 5 foursomes of Westmoreland members just for a season. But we won't know that, and they won't know that until they know when they're going to be able to get back in their home. There's a lot of variables, and it's difficult to put, to know where that's all going to fall when we're sitting here in August. But I think it's a comfortable budget. I see a scenario where we definitely could do better in revenue. And as far as budgeting, you could budget, we always say you can budget to a higher number and then explain that the things that didn't happen that you were hoping for, or you could budget to this number and if all these things happen, explain why it's higher. So I think it's more of like a strategy. So I'd be comfortable either way.
It makes sense.
Can I ask you a question? To your comment about 10 minutes, 2 times over 10 minutes. I know a while ago it was every 8 minutes. So what was your thought? I mean, most courses do it every 10 minutes.
We were at 9.
We were at 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were at 9. Some places, so in the COVID regulations, you had to go to 15-minute intervals, so there weren't 2 groups on the same hole. And then somewhere in the COVID regulations, they changed it from 15 to 10-minute intervals. So we had to run that whole season from 10-minute intervals. And what we found was it helped pace of play. It helped pace of play considerably with people not bunching up on the second hole and the third hole, just by having that extra minute of time that people team up. Then we looked at what it did, business-wise for, where did it cost you a couple of tee times a day as you spread it over a whole day. We were comfortable with where that was at. And if we were to go to 9-minute intervals, it backs up. Also, 10-minute intervals provide an opportunity that if something happens, from time to time, we have a group that has a computer glitch or they thought they booked and they didn't. Hey, we have a tea time. And then you look on their phone and your tea time was yesterday, or it's tomorrow. The 10-minute intervals, we can occasionally accommodate a group and be able to squeeze them in between two groups, having to send them away. Whereas that would be really difficult. It just becomes more difficult every minute you kind of cut off. So we found some benefits out of it and then revenue wise.
Thank you.
I have a kind of question about the loan, because I think in the spring, we were told that the loan was delayed in making its payments. I mean, do you have any concerns about that will happen again in the future?
All I can say is, those payments were caught up by July and they're paid for the rest of the year. So they actually paid in an effort to not get into that situation and when things slow down into the winter. They paid October, November and December on October 1st. So they're paid in full for 2025. So, I mean, I think that shows a different perspective and, you can see that in the budget under concession fares. That's why we're up a little, we're up. The money that should have been in 24 ended up in 25. And it looks like it goes down next year even. But, again, the fact that they paid the last 3 months of the year in advance makes us feel better about it. I think it was just a business thing that was happening.
Camp revenues jumped out at me a little bit. Looks like we're down about 9%. I was always under the impression that our golf camps were pretty much always sold out. But it looks like, as your projection, we're down about 9%. And then for next year, we're not budgeting the same number that we budgeted this year. We're kind of splitting the difference. Can you walk through that for me a little bit?
Sure. Some of that is keeping a handle on our numbers and regulation based. Some of that is more residents signing up early and getting the spots, which changes the percentage of the revenue, or a lot more residents.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, something we saw this year, huge participation wise, was employee participation in golf programs, which is great. Something that, if I'm being honest, if I walk you through the whole thing, the number of employees that took golf lessons used to be 0, and it keeps going up every year, which I think is great. But we don't have the ability to add more just because of our size. So if a class that was, only 10 people, it's kind of a slim margin there.
That makes sense. These things were still basically sold
We're
out,
still full.
but we had some residents paying a little bit less, and we had some employees that get a benefit or commissioners or whatever. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's why
Got it.
the budget is projecting the same.
Yep, makes sense.
With the junior membership program this year, was the age range of the kids in camp, did it shift at all younger, or did you see a decline in the age?
Not really. And
Okay.
the camp runs kind of the 8 to 13 range. The junior membership is going to be kids that can play, and they need to be able to play on their own. We do an advanced junior program, which plays on, they play a couple days a week, and the requirement for that is they need to be able to walk 18 holes with their bag, and it's not score based, it's speed based. They need to be able to, so we do have some kids that are young, 10 that can do that.
Yeah.
So it's more skill based, and Cole handles who can do that, who can't do that. He monitors that program.
I think in our general rec programs and camps, there's so much ability to overlap things. And I know, for example, some of my boys' closest buddies did both. And it's such an upsell opportunity. It's exciting, I think, for kids who just want more and more and more and more golf. So
Yes, for sure.
I would love to see some of those where they can overlap, let's get them to stay at the course all day.
And if we had the R3 9-hole course that a lot of places around us have, we would fill it all day long. But yeah, we do. Staff does a good job of getting the kids off the golf course to get to play, not only in the camps, and that's another thing too. Getting the kids on the golf course during camp days, we have to be super creative because we don't want to take away from paid tee times, but at the same time, the camp experience is playing on the course. So
Yeah. And because it starts so much later, there's a full chunk of the day that they can be doing another camp in the morning.
and availability of the golf course is why we once upon a time, we did camp in the morning, but they couldn't get on the course at all. So we used some stuff, they're able to get on in the afternoon and to start again. We have some things like, not to get too into the weeds, but we have like ladies 9-hole leagues. Ladies 9-hole leagues will stop at 9 and then we'll start the kids on 10 because, so we just do different things like that.
And is the junior membership specific to the Wilmette golf course, or I feel like there's some junior memberships that cross multiple?
Ours is just for our golf.
Just for our-
Yeah, it's so just for our course. Yeah,
Are any other courses offering a junior membership anymore?
very few. There's
Mail Shores, I think.
Canal Shores is a run that does a program. Winnetka has one, it's a bit more expensive.
I seem to recall a conversation that a year or two ago, like you said, there, if Highland Park had one, but a number of communities around us stopped.
Yes. Yeah, just, you gotta look at it from a cost standpoint.
I also think Cole and you guys, I've said this a couple times, that's a great program. The cost per round is competitive. If they, there's nothing in here that's vibes, but the fact that those kids go by Sun plays and they know what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and because you have that control, right? They know you and they know your staff, and by and large, they do a good job. The kids and obviously the staff to making sure that that wonderful benefit continues.
And we're fortunate in that we have a number of members of this community that will pay for their kid to have the membership.
Yeah, and not play.
And not play
Yeah.
very often. It's like it's like a gym membership and everything else, and everybody eats it every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, the junior membership, if every kid tried to play every day, we'd be in trouble, but works out well.
Any final questions?
Yeah, driving range. Looks like for coming into this year, we budgeted a 10% decline in revenues, but that was following a 30% increase from the year before. So we had a lot of deferral stuff going on over those past years, but it looks like for this year, we hit the number and we're looking at it to be exactly the same next year. That basically saying we're kind of at our capacity with our driving range.
The driving range, it's doing 400,000.
Right, that's a huge number.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny if you look at projections, because it's like projection comes in line with the budget, in line with this year, in line with.
Plus or minus.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, not even weather sensitive either.
So, the year that it was up a lot more, that was that year that it was 75 degrees on March 3rd.
Got it.
Yeah, and if you look back, it's like March was crazy, just.
So I do, this will be my final question. So and spoiler alert, everybody's getting, well, unless you have indoor programming, right? It's, what are we talking about here? Like 2 years ago, it was like the world's greatest summer, March through November,
Yeah.
right? This year I still think it was pretty great. Are we talking more like this year or somewhere in between?
I think we're looking more like this year.
Right.
It's what it's been.
This is a more normal spring as
Right,
opposed to
right.
the spring that you just referenced, so.
Right, so that's,
And one good thing we know for golf and for some other operations, so kind of early on. Like, if spring was by the 4th of July, you're behind. Like,
Oh,
it's
sure.
been
Yeah.
cold
yeah,
all the way
I thought you were talking
through.
about like your knee.
No.
Like,
No, it's like-
summer's coming.
Summer's coming.
Yeah.
Pretty cold.
I recommend the injections, but.
Well, you have
Get that looked
you
at.
have the dynamic pricing, so I mean, there's some more volatility to it. When you have a great summer, there's more demand, so you have higher pricing, whereas on the lakefront, you can't, if we can't charge
$30.
$40 in a 90-degree day, right? And so there's a difference here that I really noticed this year about how sensitive we are to the weather, and that does come with the obligation that if we do have bad weather, we have to make some pretty quick choices. So, but yeah, that's it.
Right. I just have one note on maintenance. Nate, I've noticed that you've brought in a lot more natural spaces, which is great, sort of, more wildflowers and less groomed areas, which is probably not only good for the environment, but also good for your maintenance levels and just how you have to staff. Are you thinking about adding more of those in the future?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if you've been to the course in the last couple of weeks, we just seeded the large hill behind the driving range.
Okay.
That'll be a fine fescue area,
Okay.
more wild-ish. We have a couple other areas in mind. It's tough when the property's so small, right? We're only 110 acres. There's only so much land that we can cut off before it does impact, like Adam said, pace of play. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of little things that we can still do to improve, or not improve, but to your point, add to
Yeah.
those areas and those spaces. So we'll see what we,
Mhm. Absolute maintenance of the buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good to see you.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll do it, yeah. Just send us up. That's right, now we can clap for everybody. Not, right?
Yeah.
Should we just like deny that?
So Dave, per my request to Chris, can you, as we go through the budget, make the introduction to the staff so we can associate name and face with where we are?
Absolutely.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
have them just stand up and tell us
Perfect.
who they are and what they do.
All right,
All right, let's begin.
all right, Dave, do you want to just start? We'll just go off your list.
Yeah, sure. So over the last couple of years, we've talked about this concept of managing our operations as individual businesses. And the concept has really taken hold with our staff. Some areas we're already naturally doing that. Some of it doesn't come natural to recreation programmers. But our focus on business is working in my impression. We continue to serve the community with high quality programs, yet being mindful that we're also trying to provide a quality experience. So we're trying to give them something great. We also, somewhat Adam spoke to is the overall experience is important, something that we want to consider for our families. We listen to our community. We listen to the comments in our board meetings, in our interactions with people, and we actually listen to what the public says to us and asks of us. We consider that very important. These guys back here that will introduce themselves they work very earnestly in the best interest of the park district and the experiences of people, and they are great stewards of our facilities, our programs. Overall, things are in great hands with these guys from a budget standpoint, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. But overall operations, there's not a better crew of people to put it all together than the people here in this room. Overall, our budget structure has changed a little bit over the course of the year. We've kind of pulled some things out of grouped GLs and separated them out so we could track them and manage them a little bit better. Some things have been consolidated into an area where it makes more sense for everything to kind of be in one place versus separated out. So if they have a question about that, we can get to that later as we get to individual budgets. But we've been working with finance to make sure that the way we do things from a budgetary standpoint matches up with the way we do things operationally. So it kind of all makes sense as it works together. Over the last year, our teams have all completed SWOT analyses of their businesses, mostly at a high level, but some at a very specific level, that all the decisions that we make from a budgetary standpoint are market driven, where we pay attention to what's going on around us. These guys are the experts in the field that they work in, and so they pay attention to what's happening around us. Because it does play into our pricing, our population, and everything else of people that use our programs. As we mentioned quite a bit, weather plays a huge impact in especially some of our seasonal programs. And believe it or not, it's unpredictable. So our philosophy, we have the same questions maybe that golf has as, do we budget for perfect days every day and then explain, that we had bad weather? Do we pick somewhere in the middle, or we assume it's going to rain a lot and then we budget conservatively? A philosophy that we are open to any kind of suggestion that you have. But this year for us was a particularly more challenging weather year because the bad weather happened early in the season. Sometimes at a critical point. Memorial Day weekend, for example, was a time when it's usually a great start to the season and everyone gets excited. And if they haven't bought their passes, they do it then. And this year it didn't happen in some of those places. We didn't get those people back then for the rest of the season, but that'll come out in some of our other budgets. And then overall, we are, we have a very focused approach on investing in our people and doing some more training and development of our staff along the way. We didn't do as much as we had hoped in 2025 from a budgetary standpoint, or from a practical standpoint, but we hope to continue to focus on that as we move forward in 2026. So there are a few overall themes between all of these different budget areas that kind of ring true. Supplies, like everybody else, supply costs are up. It doesn't mean supply use is up on our part, but it means costs are up. For example, this past year, we found that through our investigation into our own inventory of things that we had lots of stuff, lots of t-shirts that we could use in 2025 that we didn't have to spend, but in 2026, we've used down some of our inventory. So some of our supply expenses are up because we have to replenish some of those inventories. But those were kind of business decisions we made for this year, and then we have to kind of get back to normal for next year. The CRC has a huge impact on a lot of the things we do, not just in one particular area. So we took a big hit this year with the rainy season, I guess as Tim called it, which impacted our programming for the latter half of this year. And then it's still kind of unknown as we're moving into next year what that's going to mean for us from programming. Staff's done a great job of programming around that. Our community's been very resilient and continuing to come and participate in our programs, even though it's not an ideal situation. But some of those are some of the broad things that have impacted the overall recreation budget across the board. I'm sure you may have heard already that our general manager of Ice and Aquatics, Rochelle, has resigned. And so her last day with us is on Friday this week. And so I'm sitting in for her to talk about the pool budget and the ice budget. So I'll do my best to work you through or answer your questions about those budgets. But since we are now at the point we're going to talk about the pool, I would like Sarah to introduce herself.
But in the industry since 2006. And then Allison, because I taught her children how to swim at the Lakeview Island, fitting to the city.
Oh, how fun. I love it.
So overall, the pool budget is fairly uncomplicated. It costs us a certain number of dollars to open the pool and staff it with lifeguards and staff at every position. And that's pretty cut and dry. Our wages go up. We don't have to bring on extra staff to cover things. Programming is pretty consistent. The two variables that are inconsistent are the weather and then mechanical issues in the pool that we can't necessarily predict. So as I mentioned early this spring, we got hit with our heaters not being online and ready to go yet. So we had cold water and we had cold weather over Memorial Day weekend. And so that was kind of a hit for our crew for pool operations. And so being that we didn't sell as many memberships early in the season, it's hard to recover some of those people. However, we did do a lot more sales for Cyber Monday this year, which is selling more season passes to any of our spaces early in the season. Helps us get those customers in the door early. But are there specific questions about the pool budget?
Do birthday parties happen at the pool? And so is that in the same line item as facility rental? So I'm wondering if we separate, for example, third-party users from, resident birthday parties, for example.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. There is facility rental, to what extent is that like the Nature Aquatics or, I don't know if there's anyone else.
No, we don't have many other rental groups that come to the pool. I believe birthday parties are in our rental line.
Birthday parties and Nature Aquatics go to facility.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're lumped together.
They're together, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How'd that conversation go about the swim team and their
Swim
contract and everything?
I'll just say it ended very well. We're in a good place now with them. We can talk more about it later, but I think we're in a good place with them. Healthy dialogue.
You're talking about the person that sent us the note.
Yeah. We certainly have some areas that we can work on as far as the structure of our agreements and all that kind of stuff, but it was all, we had some good takeaways from it, and I believe they did too, so we're in a good place with that.
Thank you.
I have a question about diving, but I guess it's more in a bigger context before I get to it, that as I take a look at some of the report totals at the end of all of this, we think we're going to generate, we had a budget in all of these areas consolidated to generate about 2.8 million. Looks like our projection's about 2.6 million, and the proposed budget's about 2.35 million. So, big picture, that seems to me to be kind of trending in the wrong direction. And I don't want to get too caught up in any one individual program, but then I take a look at diving, for example, and I know you and I had a chance to talk a little bit about it, but we had a fairly robust diving program in 23 and 24. We expected to in 25. I know we had some staffing issues, so we took a pretty big step back. It looks like we're kind of locking in that for 26 as well, as opposed to trying to rebuild that program. I'm not necessarily concerned about that one individual program, but in the context of all of these, when you add them all up together, it looks like, financially in these areas, we might be taking a little bit of a step back in aggregate, which concerns me. So I don't know if you want to talk about diving specifically or just sort of the big picture.
Diving, we didn't have the staff.
Just don't have the staff. You can't run a program without staff. I got it.
And without there being a guarantee that we'll find the staff or have the staff, that we were conservative.
Okay.
Yeah, I have just one question. This is just a concept. What are dues? When you have, you had a budget of 2,500 for dues, and only you ended year to date is $265, and now you've got the 2,500 again for next year. What are the dues? What constitute dues?
Those are dues that we pay.
For our employees. So the 265 is our IPRA registration for the year. There may be some other pool dues that are pool.
So why weren't they paid this year?
Do we know?
I would assume it would be some audit fees.
It was probably audit fees since Councilman Hunsaker didn't come out, this season. There was not that bill to pay.
And that expense is not gonna hit this year.
Correct.
All right, there you go. But we're expecting them to come out next year.
The goal is, yes, they're supposed to
Oh,
have.
we are? There we are.
With Padurma, and they're supposed to come up with a solution for that, so yes. Because it was Councilman Hunsaker and Padurma had a kind of a separation. And so the American Red Cross certified agencies did not have an audit in 2025. So we didn't have to pay that.
Okay. But I guess, are you sure like the number won't increase? And I mean, in terms of if they do have an audit, in 2026, I guess I'm just, it's going to be a different agency auditing now?
I have no idea.
So, okay, so you've just made a WAG and put down the number.
It was historically what was.
Yeah, okay, so we could go up, it could go down.
Part of the separation with the Dermot and Councilman Hunsaker were the rising costs of the audit. So I guess the assumption would be that it's going to be less than that. But
Below.
right. But there aren't a lot of organizations that do those types of audits, so it's kind of still an unknown.
Yeah, so, okay.
The biggest expense is obviously salaries and wages and specifically the lifeguarding line item. Is there any issue with recruitment of lifeguards? I think a few other clubs have had more trouble recently getting lifeguards and the stability of lifeguards through the summer?
Luckily, Sarah and our staff has done a great job of retaining lifeguards, getting lifeguards. We've been pretty fortunate in being able to get them early. Like, she does a great job of getting them early in the season and locking them in and getting them trained and.
If they come back annually, do they get a raise? They do.
This is just, you weren't able to get staff for the diving and it just because there aren't instructors around here. I'm just kind of curious.
I can speak to that a little bit. The diving coach previous was well renowned. And if he's moved on, that's a little bit of a step down in the program. And perhaps it was, the guy was awesome here. So this, there's demand for it perhaps, but it needs to be the right person. Diving's really hard to teach and especially for cheap, right? Somebody could make a lot more money private or perhaps doing it at a better facility with different diving boards versus ours. So I think that's easily explained away just kind of knowing like the situation. Bruce was medalist, right?
Sure.
So it doesn't sound like we'll be recouping those.
And that's what the plan reflects.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe just a comment on, the overview memo, which was really helpful. But, we take a look at pool operations and the bottom line final is overall budget is up 42.25%. So that looks great, but it's up 42% relative to our projections for the year, but I think it's down 26% relative to last year's budget. So I think when we do this next year, if we could have both of those numbers, I think they're both helpful to see what the proposal is relative to our projections, but also relative to where we thought we were going to be last year. Thanks.
Thank you,
Anything
Sarah.
else on the vote?
Dave.
Okay, well, we're gonna move on to the ICE budget and we'll let Sarah introduce herself again.
Share.
That's not me.
So Sarah's also one of our ICE supervisors who oversees facility rentals and the management of ICE and all the rentals. And then Lauren, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Lauren Streeter, skating supervisor, been in the business about 30 years. That's fine. It's fine.
The budget that was sent last week and the numbers are different. So.
Okay, so just quickly on ICE is very heavy. We do a lot of market analysis with ICE about what our rates are. We are currently at or near the top of the community around us as far as our ICE rental rates. So those did not increase again this year. This is one area where we took several of our Learn to Skate programs and consolidated them into one where they were split out before based on levels, but in reality, in most cases, these levels all take place at the same time on the same sheet, and they move around a little bit, and it will allow our staff just to clock in as a skating instructor for a certain period of time and cover multiple levels because people do tend to migrate around between levels and everything else. The ICE rental total number itself should be fairly consistent over time because we only have so many hours in the day to rent ICE. We know approximately the rate at which we rent our ICE. The main sheet during season is at 95% or more occupancy. The studio rink is somewhere around the 75%. So that's usually where we budget. The last couple of years, we offered some discount ice in the summer to make sure that we don't have a lot of dark ice, even in the summer. And so those numbers over the years have remained fairly constant, as far as rental use goes. We remain partners with Wilmette Hockey. That relationship continues to improve and to solidify, and we strive to keep working with them to make sure that they're great partners with us and that we're providing the action for them. They pay their bills on time. Sarah does a great job managing that relationship with them. Because they're a big customer.
A weird question, locker rental, locker rentals, you know, so the budget was, it's like the projected, it's half, almost about half of what the budget was for. I mean, you know, I know it's just out there, but I'm kind of curious as to why it was so low and, you know, I can see why you expected, but I'm just wondering why it was half of what it was.
Dealing with the locker rental situation. What?
Locker rooms?
We're in lockers.
It's like
Like,
rental baby.
It's the lockers out.
Well, we took out the lockers out.
Did take
There's puppies. Yeah.
And from COVID on, we weren't renting the lockers at all. It only started up again this year. And people are just starting to rent them literally, not even at the beginning of the year, about a quarter in, we started renting the lockers again.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's really small, but it's just caught my eye because most of those rental numbers are, you know, the rate rentals are very healthy, everything, and then he needs a locker and it's like.
and we did put some new cubbies down below to like just encourage people to manage their stuff a little bit better. They didn't have to bring a locker.
You know, ICE is one of the programs, and there's others across the district, where people from quite a long way will come to Wilmette for events, whether it's to play, to spectate, to watch a grandchild play. And, you know, so I often think of those as magnets that pull people in from elsewhere. And it's, you know, it's really important that we run them as well as we can. So if they're out of this budget, I'm sure you did a lot of thinking, if there are things that could be, you know, considered and added, but would make the experience that much better, you know, we're always interested.
Are you suggesting a bar be added?
It is not unusual when I've gone to many volleyball tournaments and there's a bar. And like, I don't know that that's a, you know, I don't know if the space constraints or the liquor commissioner would be
Rental
interested for the rental revenue, but I mean,
Be nice to send to.
there are amenities out there that people would expect when they come to visit, whether it's a super fast Wi-Fi or a very comfortable place to sit in between breaks or between ice.
And we should be listening to our biggest customer, who is Wilmette Hockey, and that's and getting some guidance from them, I imagine.
Because they go places, they see the, you know, the best of the best.
That's what, I mean, when you're just speaking of that, and I'm just thinking, I mean, there are vending machines, but is that a place for a? And then maybe I'm misremembering, but do we have a consent? I know we have for the.
There's a
There's so much trouble keeping somebody in there.
right
here.
for us to operate it is cumbersome. It's the reason we don't operate the concessions at the pool or the lakefront. Like we contract those out to somebody. Would we entertain someone's proposal to put something in there? I'm sure we would. We've talked about it in my time here. We've talked about what options could be there, making it a more hospitable environment where people, they're going to hang out. They might as well hang out and get some of
Because
those
it was like a
amenities.
coffee, I mean, for the kids, and it's just coffee machines, and I mean, it would have been really nice to add hot chocolate or something there.
Sounds like a master planning.
Yeah.
That's the line item.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some energy around,
Yeah.
when the time is right.
We actually did, like a year or so ago, we brought in Mike from the lawn to come in and look at the space and give us some impressions, like what he thought and would he have any interest in. He turned around and walked away. Not what they wanted to do. There were a lot more staffing issues, I guess, among the industry at the time, and he didn't think he didn't have the bodies to put in there. So might be a conversation that we revisit in future.
Any other questions on ICE?
The only other question I had is the person who's leaving on Friday was overseeing ice and pool.
Correct.
And so is that position getting placed in, is that in both budgets?
Yeah. Her salary
So her salary
that
gets-
salary is split
Right.
across those two.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's in here and you anticipate.
Our hope, yes, by the first of the year, we have someone in that position. That position is currently posted and we are searching now for that
Okay.
position.
And it'll be ice and pool.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Less than income looked like advanced and beginner were kind of right on budget, but intermediate, which is the larger one, was down a fair amount for budget. Is there a story there, or is it just, I think it shows it was down about 11%. So overall lesson revenue was down 7% relative to budget. It looks like it was all kind of focused in the intermediate lessons. Was there something going on in intermediate, or just, we were just down a little bit?
I could speculate and talk for Florence, or I could let her give the direct answer.
The numbers that we had for the intermediate were the basic ones through the basic sixes, which are some are beginning and some are intermediate. We had very large numbers in the intermediate, so I'm always surprised to hear this. The issue is more that the coaches, and this is why we're starting to talk about the GL codes being designated differently, is the coaches cannot understand how to drop a pull down for their pay code. So everything they're putting under advanced or beginning, they do not understand the intermediates pull down. They just don't get it. It's like they think it's basic, therefore we're going to put it in beginning or advanced. I've had to go through almost every time and start to change pay codes, and that became very obvious, especially this last spring. And our numbers were up, way up from typically for spring, registration is always low. Winter's our peak. Late fall is somewhat starting to move up. Our early fall this year was very good. Our late fall is probably on par with the early fall. It's a little lower than it should be, but not by much, maybe 20 skaters. And then we anticipate winter to be what we had, maybe a little bit higher than last year. Our events, let's say Spooky Skate, Skate with Santa, Holiday Exhibition, Ice Show, have all been very well attended. Like we had a super big turnout this past Sunday for Spooky Skate, and we anticipate Skate with Santa to be as large as last year as well. And the Holiday Exhibition and Ice Show and so forth.
Thank you.
You know, I'm always interested in workflows and, you know, it's cumbersome for staff to input the right drop down. I think is the data that comes out of this granularity useful to have beginner, intermediate, advanced hockey, adult? So if not, could it be lessons and much easier for you or you?
I'm sorry, that's what Dave was alluding to, I believe, is to group it all under the Learn to Skate banner so that I see in Rec Tech where our numbers are. So
Okay, you have another way
track of
to get it down.
and toddlers and all of that
Uh-huh.
myself. But the GL codes being designated as all these different codes, it makes no difference.
Yeah.
They're all under the Learn to Skate.
And they're all
We took a
managed.
hit
Sorry, go ahead.
took a hit a little bit on the hockey numbers. A lot of them have stayed just and moved in when they really shouldn't have moved into the Wilmette program. So we're trying to get our Wilmette coaches, because we do have coaches from Wilmette Hockey, teaching our Learn to Skate. We're trying to have Wilmette Hockey understand we want to be the feeder into their program. So we're working with them more diligently, especially right now, because I've seen a drop in our beginning hockey. So.
Okay, thank you.
Wilmette Hockey does rely on us to train kids to skate before they don't really want kids coming to the program that don't know how to skate. So we're kind of their bridge, and Florence has hired some of their staff to work with us. And so we're trying to start this feeder program for us to be the cultivators of skaters. And then where they go from there, whether it's figure skating or hockey, is kind of up to them.
Can we replicate that in every sport, please?
We're working on it.
That's great. We
Yeah.
gotta bring more in-house.
Yeah.
This is a bit educational for me. Obviously, we've talked about different grants and sponsorship opportunities, Zamboni being one of them. Where would that go in here? If
There
like,
are
sport
sponsorship,
locally?
there is a line in here for sponsorship for ice.
And are they separate? Would sponsorships and grants be separated in line items in here?
I don't know if we have a grant line in ice. Actually, I don't just.
This is one spot that we are hopeful that we could find some, right?
That'd be advertising, so it might mislead somebody.
Well,
I would have to.
I would run that.
Type in myself, I have 700.
Okay,
We would run that through.
it would be, okay, that would.
So if we have grants that are specific to capital projects, you're gonna see it run through capital.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I just wanted to add one thing that we talked about, a Learn to Skate program. So now you're seeing a 190, 191, 192. You're gonna only see one line next year called Learn to Skate. The system has to be down with nobody in it in order for me to run these jobs that consolidate all the GLs. So I figured I would be able to do this when there was less activity.
How many more GLs can we consolidate?
You know what? I am happy to consolidate all the G, as many as we
I
can.
don't think you should be dictating GL consolidating. I'm sure Dave and his team are.
Oh, no, but I just wanted to tell you, you will see
Yeah.
only one. And it'll be Learn to Skate,
Okay.
because Florence, we talked about it
Right.
during her
It's a
meeting.
great solution.
So
Yeah, great,
this will help, and it'll help our employees.
for sure.
Yes.
Can I take a step back to the last conversation we were having? We're just getting, in the skating program and the feed, trying to become a feeder program. It seems to me that, Wilmette Hockey, it's to their advantage to get the kids as soon as possible, because then they're paying Wilmette Hockey and not Wilmette Park District. So, I'm wondering, are there other programs through other, facilities that do something like that, have a partner? And, how have they structured to hold kids longer in the Learn to Skate before they let them go to the third party and lose the opportunity for those, for that income?
Are the institutions dictate that the children, we're not gonna do this for a long time, dictate that the kids had to take a couple Learn to Skate classes, like they had to take snowplow 1, 2, and 3 to even go into the MIC program. There's a lot of other rinks that also do a house league, which is a tremendous amount of skaters that to benefit the park district. There's no way Wilmette Hockey would let us do that. I mean, it's too big of a number. Mini Hawks is another number that they take a lot of our skaters because the kids go through free equipment, they get the Blackhawk little shaft jersey, et cetera, et cetera. We try to learn the game where we brought in a jersey. It worked, but it didn't work as well as like the synchro team we brought in, and we're in collaboration with the Starlights, which is a national ranked thing. That just started last session and it's proved to be very large. So we're trying different innovative ways, bringing in new programs to make up for some of the ones that we're not capturing. It's a hard one that we're losing these kids right away to Wilmette Hockey. I've talked to them a little bit about, do not hold the Mini Hawks at the same time we're holding our little ones, because our little ones are seeing these little ones with the really fancy jerseys on, and the parents want to play, as I've heard, real hockey, and the kids are just floundering on the ice. So some of our coaches are seeing that, and Wilmette coaches are seeing that, and they're trying to push them back into our program. So we are working on that actively with some of the travel coaches from Wilmette Hockey.
So it's kind of more of a branding thing than anything. It's that we've worked with the Junior Trevians to create this Junior Trevians program where they're learning to skate. It sounds a little bit more directed, like they're not just learning to skate, they're learning to become Junior Trevians. And we talked about them getting jerseys that they would be proud of, and just kind of that buy into kids that want to get that feel. So that's part of our ongoing relationship and working with Wilmette Hockey versus against them, or working against the Junior Blackhawks, and being mindful of what we're trying to offer and with an end goal.
It's our ice.
I understand. And that's a position to take, but we also value them as partners, and we're at a place where we are working together.
Yeah.
I think as a user of these programs too, the difference in reasons, so why soccer, basketball, some of these sports, we have lost kids to the travel programs, is our programs are parent coached, and it's typically one practice a week where parents can spend money, have professional coaching, the fancy gear, and it's 2 to 3 days a week. And so for an overly scheduled environment, their kids are then out of the house for 2 to 3 days versus potentially having to be on the hook to coach a team themselves for 1 hour a week. So I actually don't think that even by us trying to negotiate to the negative with Wilmette Hockey, that would benefit us when it's really the parents and the
The
environment.
statement that was made is their program is operating at the same time as our
Mhm.
program. So that's, maybe we don't have that ice time available is all I was indicating, so that those kids stay with us and move on. I'm not saying that that's the approach I'm recommending. it seemed to me that,
Well, as opposed to what, Commissioner, I can't read that.
It's Ally, it's fine, thank you.
Is Wilmette Hockey actually uses more parent coaches than our program. Our program really uses Wilmette travel coaches. And we have better coaches, snowplow staff, but it's very hard to convince the parents of that. We're writing up our schedule and we're trying to get, people like Bill Martin, who is a travel coach, has been all over the place. He is actively trying to get these kids away from the parent coaches, like on Mini Hogs House League, which are predominantly parent coaches. We have more professional coaches in the Learn to Skate program. It's hard to convince the parents. We're trying all different ways of doing that. And we're trying to collaborate with Wilmette Hockey. Some things we're not, seeing eye to eye on, let's say, the time of the classes.
Is Wilmette Hockey for profit or is it a 501? It's for profit, okay, I think that's it. I know, I feel like for something like wings or swim clubs, you have a situation where these younger programs fund some of the more senior teams because you need it, they're scale, right? You have, in order to have a 20-person high school team, you need to have a 200-person 8-year-old team to help give that coach something to do. If it's a for-profit organization, we might have more, I'm a little more sympathetic to squeezing them on record finding that, because we're competing with them, right? If it's a nonprofit, then it feels like a more community. So it's a difficult thing to balance. Good luck with that, but thanks for telling us about it.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, should we, Mr. On, any final questions? Okay.
You can keep going.
All right, I believe platform tennis is up next.
We're kind of meeting, our order, we're going through, we're gonna stop by community appreciation
Oh, I'm sorry.
quickly. That budget is on page 16. This is the major home of July 3rd, block party, and then a lot of our seasonal special events, breakfast with Santa, egg hunt, royal ball, garage sale, the truck, those sorts of things. This is really kind of our community service, community event area. Major change, Wallace Bowl is also in this budget. And the big change that we made last year was that at request from this group, we wanted to bolster the budget for Wallace Bowl and do more programming there this summer, which we did. Wallace Bowl programming this summer was awesome. A lot of really cool stuff. And we want to continue to do that, offer great programming down there. What we've learned along the way is that the staff that we've used to do that, having a remote operation at Wallace, because some of the infrastructure at Wallace is a bit of a technology standpoint. So we actually take stuff from our auditorium and move it down to Wallace. And so we want to, we also hire professional staff that run those events. And we found out that we are under the market as far as what we pay those professional staff to perform those services for us. So we have a slight increase in the budget for Wallace Bowl this year. It's not to increase programming unless we put more money in there. It's to kind of catch us up with the wages and stuff that it costs to do Wallace programming. But we're all about the Wallace Bowl and doing more things out there.
So can you just quick overview of Wallace Bowl, events, what types of events we have? I know that there's like a play that gets put on, they spend a lot of time practicing for that. Then I've heard of other concerts, whether it's ABBA, but I mean, is the programming of that kind of a broad spectrum of types of programming?
I don't think the play's been they haven't been doing the play down there.
So the Children's Theater
Oh, good.
did a performance there. We haven't had an adult performance down there in a long time.
It was the Children's
The
Theater.
Children's Theater did a performance down there and they're gonna do another one next year. I think they already have, Laura's not here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, like.
So last year was our first year with Little Women down there. It was a non-musical version. And then this past year, we did Freaky Friday, the first children's theater musical that we've done down there since the adult musical stopped. And next year, we're looking at Footloose. So we are definitely moving forward with musicals. We're calling it our high school intensive program. So the way Wilmette Children's Theater is broken down, we have 2 kind of mid-grade performances each year. And then one, what we call the minis performance for like the 1st through 4th graders. And then the summer is our high school intensive experience because they get more training in acting, more training in dancing, more training in singing, and kind of more of an intense experience because they are mostly doing those things at high school, at their various high schools around, and we need to keep up with that level of like training for them to come back to us in the summer. So that's a program that we are really looking to grow. It is definitely a competitive area in the North Shore. We have lots of theater training programs around here. But when you start getting into that intensive level with guest speakers, guest teachers, professional workshop artists coming in, then you can start to charge significantly more than you do for your regular programming, park district programming. So that is definitely somewhere that we're looking to grow.
And are you also scheduling like the musicals, the acts that come through like that? You know, there's that ABBA.
The concerts? Yeah, absolutely.
So what was it? Do we have jazz? Do we have, orchestral? Did we have, so was there a broad spectrum of events?
Yeah, this year with the extra money you guys bequeathed us, thank you so much. We actually split into 2 nights this past summer. Tuesdays were our swing, symphonic, jazz, classical, all of those kind of more fine arts kind of nights. And then Thursdays were for the rock bands, the big ticket items like ABBA, like Taylor Swift, impersonator. Yeah. So we did have 2 separate series along those lines. And for next year, we are looking at moving back to 1 night just because that was feedback we got from the community that it was hard to balance going back and forth each week. But we would still definitely have that broad spectrum of interest. I know I heard back from some community members that they would even be interested in an opera night. So we're reaching out to some local areas at Northwestern and places like that because we've not had one of those before. So that's anyone that has suggestions, we are always ready to take suggestions from the community or from anyone.
No, I know that Northwestern is an amazing fine arts talent pool from which to draw. I've met one of their masters, opera singers. I didn't know there was a master's degree in that, but it was, so good luck and thank you, because I think it's, as we all know, we love Walls Bowl. We think it's unique to the community. And to be able to be scheduling programming down there is fantastic. Let's use the place. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think just confirming an assumption I have about July 3rd. I assume any staffers are billed to their respective GLs. They're not in the July 3rd line item here.
So the majority of
Very
people
low
that work
staff.
July 3rd are volunteers for our staff that volunteer to be there. We do hire a few part-timers and those are in this budget.
They're not on the clock. They should be paid for that,
Our staff,
I think. I mean,
Salary.
oh, salaries.
Yeah.
I follow.
Yeah.
But our hourly. Yeah.
No, it's not just that, right?
Give it away, Julia.
Spending double.
and so next year creates a different little challenge for us or a different way to approach it because July 3rd is the actual holiday. So we won't have camps on
Right.
July 3rd. So sometimes we had some staffing issues and not getting enough staff to work or part-time staff because they'd already worked a full day of camp. This year they won't be working camp, so they'll be available, but we would be potentially paying more part-time people for the year as staff if we need that. We haven't staffed very
It
appropriately.
seems very appropriately staffed. That's why I was wondering where the hours were, but just a lot of salaried employees. By the way, when I work extra hours for my employer, they don't call it volunteering. They just
Right.
call it my job.
Right.
Can I ask something of the board if they want to explore it, and y'all can say no. That number is expensive, right? July 3rd is expensive.
I assume it's a fireworks display and.
It's everything, yeah, and it's great. Spend more. Is there an opportunity to have perhaps like the music stage or some other sponsorship availability? And I understand it's a national holiday and we don't want to necessarily associate large,
I think we could have underwriting, yeah.
is that,
The Wintrust Music Stage.
any of those things, but I understand it's a sensitive topic and I thought we can talk. I just don't want to approach anybody without the board feeling like it's a possibility or not. And if it's not, it's not. We've done this for 100 years. We'll do it for 100 more. I don't know if it's precedent we want to set, but I did say it's $100,000 for an event, and I don't know. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I already sold the stage, so.
Right, yeah, so that's right. As long as it's not a fire sale, right? I mean, the stage is the obvious limitation, right?
I mean, we already have sponsors for the run. That is that day.
And the block party, but that's not a national.
I mean, the run is on a national holiday.
No, it's on the 3rd, it's not national holiday.
Good point.
Well,
It is also,
the run is associated with the July 3rd festival.
sure,
And it's sponsored.
just something to consider.
So I
We
don't
don't have to make this
see-
decision
Yeah,
today.
it feels
This
like,
is different.
it feels like a good conversation, but maybe there's a policy more broadly that we would want to consider when it comes to sponsorship.
Yes.
For Park District,
Great.
whatever the venue may
Great
be.
point.
I would just add, it's not uncommon for, especially like fireworks and the cost of that to be
Mhm.
sponsored.
Could we get some examples? Yeah.
When we discuss it, to
The one that I worked in Oak Park was all the fireworks were paid for by the bank.
I feel like
Well,
one-
yeah, I think all this,
As well as some other opportunities such as VIP seating and stuff like that.
to Julie's point, this is probably something we want to do very publicly, have this discussion, so maybe we can just put some feelers out. See if anyone would be interested.
Cow, for sure.
Get it on a cow, let the community know we're considering it, have some information saying Oak Park, Northbrook, this people do it. And let the community weigh in, and if it's a hard no, it's a hard no, and we've kind of checked our boxes.
Yeah, going into that conversation, doing some landscaping just to understand how it's handled in other communities would be helpful.
Yes. All right, that's it.
Agreed. Okay, I'm looking at my order correctly now. I apologize, Dave. We are moving on to Lakefront. With Meg.
Seeing all three of y'all?
I still introduced them, still helpful. We have a new
Oh, yeah.
commissioner.
You guys can introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Connor McCormick, I'm the Lakefront Park Supervisor. I'm Nick Kukovic, Lakefront Beach Supervisor.
I'm Megan White, the Lakefront General Manager, so I forgot for a second there. We've been the three of us for 2 summers now, with myself being on property for just under 5 years. Yeah, we really love it.
Someone's got to especially with the lifeguard. It's not just a job, it's a lifestyle.
Yes, yes. We live it, and we show it. So, lakefront budget. For the vast majority of our fees, for this coming year, we followed the guidance of that 5% increase. Our daily passes remain the same. We did not increase those. And that's just because that 5% really doesn't make a difference. We felt like based on all of our neighbors, it made sense to keep those all exactly where they are. The only exception to the daily passes is that our sailing did increase $1. We haven't changed that over the last couple of years. So we went from $11 to $12. And all of our numbers for those daily passes are based on 2025 actuals. I won't say the W word again, but that, I will say the weather, becomes really impactful. And so we've seen over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of change in what those numbers can be. So that's kind of why we budgeted based on what the actuals were this year, because we can't expect anything for next year. As we're talking more about pricing, our aquatics camp number has decreased. We've had a couple of years, 2 summers ago, it was increased and we saw our registration drop a lot. We've we've seen the revenue remain the same with less participants. And we want to bring a lot more people back into the fold. So we've decreased that number, made it similar to other camps throughout the district. So that's going to be a little bit different this year, as well as our kayak and sup camp. Our vendor has requested to increase that expense. It's a very specialized camp. I believe that puts that camp at the most expensive per hour in our entire district, but that is a vendor-based camp. So those two camps kind of are making big changes.
We're gonna market the aquatics camp change, new price and, okay, because that was some
Yeah.
that we're listening, especially with the vendor camp. I mean, got a lot, you weren't around, Chris, but we got a lot of feedback. But it was very specific, helpful feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we wanted to see kind of how that flowed for a year or two, which is why we kept that price point the same at that higher level. But we just feel like we're not getting the engagement that we want or could have. And so bringing that down will hopefully bring a lot more people back to that half-day camp that was really popular. When I started it filled in like 5 minutes on registration day, and I was amazed by it. And so that want and that need is there to bring people down to the lakefront. And so we feel like bringing that price point down that little bit will kind of bring people back. And that might take, honestly, a year or two, though, to see that. So those numbers that are in there are a little conservative because we can't expect just because we've lowered that price point for us to bring everybody right back that next year. It's going to take a little bit of a build, especially because some of our kids have aged out. So it's enticing those younger ones to come back in. So that's kind of a lot about our revenues. We did, I think, like I said, we based it on 2025 numbers, but there were also some other things that were impactful to those numbers and how we looked at it for the coming year. So our beach bound, the library pass, that brought in quite a couple hundred people at zero cost. And so it's only a couple $1,000s that we would have potentially lost. But as that program becomes more widespread, it might get bigger. It might get, potentially losing us a little bit of that revenue. The other thing is, the Cove. We opened up the Cove as a free space this year. So we did see a lot of people move from that South Beach area to that Cove space. So we lost some revenue on that, which we'll see impacted in 2026. We saw it in 2025 with a dip in that revenue. And so that kind of blows over.
A comment about the Cove, and people were there, but there were also a lot of people going into the water.
Yes.
And there wasn't much, it didn't seem like much patrolling, or there was someone sitting there and they weren't really, there was some people that were occasionally in kind of deep, so, and like splashing and, playing around, which, so the person who was there for the stand-up paddleboard wasn't really, that perhaps that wasn't their job but they really weren't, paying much attention to the people there. The people in the water.
It was definitely part of their job, and we'll do a better job making that known to them this coming year. That is a hard space to kind of manage. That staff member was doing a few different things in there. They were looking at the dogs. They were making sure that the trail ends were good. And then they were also making sure that people weren't on the rocks and in the water, which is exactly why we thought that area would be a problem. And it was. So they do their best to kind of get people, but with them not being on the water line, it's challenging, and it takes a minute or two to kind of pay attention, realize, and then get to those people and then have those conversations and see if they're going to, redirect that behavior.
There were people playing for a long time. I would be down there.
Yeah, that's an educational piece we can deal with this coming preseason.
Yep. So back to the budget, it doesn't sound like a fee will be imposed at the Cove this year. So training and education of our users aside, take us back to how that impacted us in 2025.
Yeah. I think there were a couple of things that we saw. If you look at South Beach, the 750s on there for 2025, we see a major decrease in our revenue. And I think that's multifold. I think that some people utilize that beach bound pass. I think that some people moved over to the cove if they felt like they didn't want to swim or felt like they could just manage the day with their feet in the water. But then I also think it was just the knowledge of what South Beach had become. So in 2025, you know, or in 2024, we saw people coming with the expectation that that space on South Beach was still free. And well, I'm here, I've packed up the buggy and the kids, so we're gonna pay and we're gonna go on. I think that in 2025, those people who did no longer want to pay just didn't come. So we saw a big dip. And I think it was like those few different things. If I'm there, I'm gonna pay for it. But if I don't get there with that knowledge, if I have the information,
Right.
then I don't have to go.
It's still the lowest single day pass anywhere around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thought I had was, the beach has its busiest day of the year, both beaches, at the weekend of the water main break. And now that was hot.
It was a hot day.
Right, but,
Weekend.
I mean, it's like, these are complimentary goods, especially when people are buying day or beach passes and pool passes. And I do think the weather played a role in it, but I also do feel like we're talking about a really large property that has gone under some really big changes over the last 2 years. And I think they will still consider to do it. I mean, I'm kind of I'm stunned, I'm pleasantly surprised when someone buys a day pass at the main beach when they could be buying a day pass at the South Beach, but that's just my preferences, right? And I think the economics of it all start to wash out and people will enjoy the cove and people will see the value proposition of being able to like read a book and have their child be lifeguarded for $5. So I'm withholding any real judgment for a couple of years on these things. I just want to make sure we're tracking data so we can have these informed conversations year over year. I'm sure you
With
are.
aquatics, it sounds like it's good that we're not making any changes.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to like flush it out for a couple years to kind of see if there are trends, what that looks like. We've definitely been tracking this summer a lot. Tracking was the key term for this year, which is great. One more thing that potentially impacted that I didn't mention was that Evanston this year made, all of their beaches free for residents. So I think we saw a little bit of a dip in our season passes as well as potentially our dailies because, well, if it's free, it's for me, so, yeah. So I think there's a couple factors, but I think we've got the data, we've got the information, and we just need to see kind of year over year how it flushes out.
And then is this, Dave made a flippant comment about how pool management is easy and it's a form of pool management, but I'm offended, but I'm not gonna hold that. Yeah, I know when I ran a pool, it's difficult, you have to staff, and you're right, you have to, you kind of sit there on a cold day, like, why are all these people here? Well, you have to in order to get them to do the job all summer long, you have to kind of have the hours. Is it the same situation where there's a stickiness in terms of the wage bill for the staff because otherwise you're having trouble get staff, or is there any flexibility with bad weather or, if you see demand breaking, what you can do about it?
Yeah, so for sure, that was when I was gonna get to
Yeah.
expenses. Yeah, so we obviously have to staff with the expectation that we're gonna have a bright, beautiful day, I think next year's 107 days out of that summer. Because if we don't have that, we can't run at full capacity. So in any of our budget areas, whether it be sailing, South Beach, or even our main operations, or Langdon, we've taken all of our operating hours and put staffing in at full force. Now, our supervisor team, as well as our lead staff team on site, does a really good job when we see weather potentially turning, making judgment calls and sending people home or calling them off. And it's never great because it's generally the newer staff. We try and keep our veterans who have been with us a few years. So there's this like play of, how do we not by sending them home, right? That step is necessary for us because we're not making that revenue that day. But then how do we keep them coming back if they know that that's kind of the standard that we send them home fairly often if it's a really bad summer? So we just kind of play this game year after year. We did put, after putting in all of our staffing this year, we did allocate a little bit to kind of pull that number back for bad weather. But we don't know what that expectation is, so we were pretty reserved in kind of pulling that number back down a little bit. So this year we had some really bad weather days, so you know, those projections are a little bit even lower than what would be expected, what we expected them to be, because it's kind of stinky. Does that make sense?
Early in the season, both Sarah and Megan, her staff did a great job of putting our kids to work that were there, like rather than sending them home, like or cleaning chairs and getting everything ready to go on the pool deck. When I saw Meg's staff putting their kids to work on the beach, doing projects, keeping them busy, improving the property, rather than sending them home, just making them productive. So they were very mindful.
Yeah, we like having them, and all those little things, you just add value to, you know, their experiences, which was really nice. It's not just, oh, I was sitting up in a chair or I was wandering around the parking lot, you know. So we do try and do right by all of them. It's the goal.
What's your, I would say, 2024 to 2025, what's your overall impression of the positive changes and maybe something you want to work on for next year?
Well, I you know, I know this was on record, but I, from a management end, do think that the changes at South Beach made a difference. I mean, overall, throughout the staff, the full-timers and the part-timers, you know, we can see it. And I think with our patrons, I know it's very divided on whether they liked it or not and whether they were for it or against it. But I know that we made less calls. I know that we needed less support, and it's not necessarily about us being in or out of our office, because we're not in our office, I will say.
But I guess my question is more, so, you know, the fence went last year and now it's posted rope, it's less intrusive. Was there a change that you sensed from people? Just, we already had the disagreement over the change, but the change is in place, and now we've you know, changed the texture of that. I mean, did you feel any different? Was it more, because, I mean, we're down there, I see it, it looks pretty, but well, you guys are down there every day interacting with people. So that's why, I guess that was more the nature of my question.
Got it. Overall, I think it was definitely positive. People felt like we were listening to them, maybe not as a whole, you know, because they said get rid of the fence completely, but they could understand what position we were in trying to manage that property, and, you know, then the opposite of making it aesthetically pleasing. So I think for the most part, the people that reached out to us, it was, thanks for listening. You know, it might not be 100% what we want, but it's getting there.
We heard similar themes. People were, you know, appreciative of the continued movement toward listening and delivering on their requests, and many more people were positive about the look and feel of the beach. So it may not always come to you. Sometimes you hear the vocal minority, but we heard, at least on the board, I think a lot of positive feedback.
Sure. Are we gonna have another lakefront?
So that'll be coming up in
That's great.
November.
Okay.
And also,
Perfect.
and we'll talk about the next steps, because we had promised the public that the next steps would be gathering feedback for how they thought this operational season went. Because while we did budget for next year, nothing in our budget really dictates how we adjust some of these management tools at the beach. So we still have the flexibility to change the way we operate. It's not really going to be a huge budgetary impact. So this conversation will continue into our next meeting with.
Yeah, that was the second part of my question. I was wondering what's changed. There weren't a lot of changes in the budget. So was there thoughts of changes coming? That's kind of where I was headed, but we can talk about that at that meeting.
And I think just lastly, as we wrap up lakefront, you referenced the library passes. Not many residents, or maybe non-residents, knew about it, but the ones that used it loved it. And so I would say for the slight decrease in revenue, the goodwill is unmatched. So it's priceless to be able to offer something that anyone can go and receive a pass if needed.
Yeah, those small little changes we made, even with, you know, instituting the Cove, like, we're listening. We can't 100%, you know, make everybody happy. Nobody can ever in life. But we're making changes in operations to accommodate the most amount of people.
That's great.
Couple of questions, a specific one and then a general one. Specific on contract services. You know, it looks like we spent 17% more than we budgeted. But then for the coming year, we're expecting another 25% increase over that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the contract services? Is that all about security or?
No, actually, miscellaneous contract services, Sheila, remind me if this is not correct, is credit card fees. So
One of the items.
one of the items, and for us, that's the major item that's in that. We have in the past had cash as well as card. And next year we're moving to completely credit card, no cash. So that 3.5% on everything just.
Yeah.
Credit and debit or just credit?
Yeah, credit and debit.
Pay the fee either way, yeah. And then the general question is very similar to the question I asked Adam. Overall revenues, it looks like from our projection to the budget for next year, flat, 1.543 to 1.565, about 1.5%. But staffing costs we're showing going up 12%. Pretty big, not much revenue growth, big wage growth. One, can you talk about a little bit? And secondly, is there any way to kind of tighten that gap a little bit?
Yeah, so as it relates to the staffing, I mean, like I said, it's budgeting for the most amount of hours. So I don't expect us, unless it's bright and sunny, which I mean, I'm hoping for, but I don't think that's gonna be it.
There'll be more revenues too.
Right, and that could always be. We're conservative because there aren't necessarily trends that we can identify. When it comes to that, I mean, ideally, it's always gonna be up, but that's just not the case. And so, yeah, the hope is that our expenses, our revenue is gonna increase a little bit. We can bolster that if you guys feel like that's necessary. We can make those changes to go up a little bit with the hope that we'll hit that. And with our staffing, the expectation is that we won't be spending that much. There are also a couple other larger but non-capital expenses that we'll need this year, including like a new garage door and some gates that were damaged last year. So those are kind of impactful in those expenses being a little bit higher because they are, $1,000, $1,500 items, but not enough to get into capital.
And to back up what you said, I mean, you expected to spend $550 and you only spent $490, so you are managing that very clearly. So that's great. Thank you.
I think I have the answer to this, but just to clarify, Elmwood Dunes, we have miscellaneous revenue, and then we have, which backs out the cost of the part-time.
Correct.
Is it paid by someone else?
The village.
It's paid by the village. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a strict like in and out.
In and out, exactly. Okay.
The contract with, is it, oh my gosh, our restaurant.
Fat Shop.
Thank you for that. The Fat Shop, that's up for renewal this year.
Correct.
And were the terms
We
negotiated?
are working on those terms
Okay.
currently. The hope is that we bring that contract back to you guys by the end of the year.
Great.
Just kind of working through some final details, but
Something that crossed my desk about Fat Shop was whether employees could receive a modest discount if they're on staff. So,
They
working
do.
at the beach and getting this. Oh, they do.
Right now, they get a 10% discount. Yes,
Thank you.
Non-alcohol, of course.
of course. I mean, maybe I would.
What?
Questions?
Yes, Salient Beach is where here? It's membership fees?
Yeah, it's in the,
It's okay.
Is
yeah,
it,
it's 142s.
is it 142? I was looking
Yeah.
for.
Donna.
Yeah.
I know that we got some comments about where it was located earlier in the year. Is it, I thought we had agreed that its location was gonna be down by the patio by the Fat Shower,
Yeah,
and it's there now.
it is not there now.
Yeah, I think that's probably for the lakefront conversation, right?
It's on Overlook Drive.
Should we say that?
Yeah.
We love
Yeah,
it.
we'll save that for our November
Excellent
conversation.
idea.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Any other?
But other budget
Oh, yes.
questions?
No, sorry, I found it. Never mind. I was found what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I am going to call for a 10-minute recess. So the time is perfectly 7:23. So please, let's all be back here at 7:32. Thank you.